We wrap up the week with some football recruiting. The class of 2025, not completely set. Still some prospects out there. We'll talk about them and a peek forward to 2026 with Locked On's recruiting analyst, Brian Smith. We break that down. And football tickets, they're going fast. Just one game remains that you can find tickets for. We break it down today. Locked On Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes Podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts, and you can also watch us on YouTube. While you're there, hit the subscribe button. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Well, happy to kick things off today with our analyst here on Locked On, our recruiting guru. He is Brian Smith, who joins us. You can find him on Twitter, X, at FBScout_Florida. And he looks as we get ready for the weekend to join us today. Brian, I know a crazy couple of days. I had my days mixed up. Normally, we do our recordings when we have you on Thursdays. I put it into the spreadsheet this week. I'm just screwing things up all over the place. Happy to have you here and excited to talk some football. Woke up a couple of times early in the morning and you feel just a little bit of more nip in the air. Not sure if you're getting down that down in Florida, though.
No, I live in Alabama now, but it's the same thing. It's perfect here in terms of the early mornings. Middays.
Yeah. Gets out of there just a little bit. Well, as we look at this, putting together notes for this week, and one of the guys that I knew Iowa was very interested in was a kicker. Now, scholarships, kickers can be a weird thing, and kind of want to start right there. Scholarships for punters. Iowa's done it. Iowa did it very successfully, obviously, recently with Torrey Taylor. Iowa's done it to varying degrees of success at the kicker position. Not Iowa specific. This is more nationwide. When you look at it, what do you think is the right path? How do you set up kind of those specialist scholarships? And does it make sense in an environment like a competitive Big Ten, SEC, to use X amount of scholarships for those specialty positions? How do you look at it in recruiting?
Two things. Number one, it depends on what's available. And number two, Nick Saban used to do it. So those are the ways I look at it. Saban used to give scholarships sometimes to long snappers. Mm-hmm. So that tells me there's value right off the bat. And then the way I would do it, if you get a great player, whether you recruited him out of high school with a scholarship or not, once he's on scholarship, you really don't want to get one right away. You want to take as many walk-ons as you can, hope one of them hits, and he's ready to take over when the next guy does, and then you're really having two guys on scholarship. But, man, it's hard. The new thing, though, and I know that some of these schools have done this, and this is going to be the new trend. There are kids that are kickers now, and I don't know how many programs, that they're not on scholarship, but they're not paying a penny because of NIL. Yeah. Is that illegal? 100%, but that's the way it's going to be. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
So that's a really gray area. And the NCAA is such a completely toothless institution. What are you going to do?
It's crazy the way that it's set up. Well, we know it's going to be happening in Iowa coming up this year because they're currently at 88 scholarship athletes. They have to be to 85 by the time August camp starts. Well, we're less than 2 weeks away. So it's going to happen. And a couple of those guys will go to walk-on status, but will still have their tuition paid for through the NIL. The collective will have that set up, and it's just the way that they do that. It's weird. It's interesting, but until we get this thing all figured out, it's going to be kind of that transition period, and that's what we're going through right now. It is a new kicker for Iowa, and that's where we start. The number one ranked kicker in the country by Kohl's Kicking, Scott Starzyk. Now, Iowa's had highly rated guys in the kicking game that haven't worked out. I think of a guy like Trent Mossbrucker that it just didn't work for him. There's been the other side, and they have had a huge number of guys that have been walk-ons that have been considered good. Now, scouting is difficult, I believe, in its own right, seeing the differences between guys. How do you scout a kicker?
You don't. I mean, I can see the leg and all that, but that's all mental stuff.
Yeah.
UCF took a kid a few years ago that was just incredible leg, and his nickname was Boomer, and it was justified. He was one of the best kickers in the country his freshman year. Then he got terrible all of a sudden.
Yeah.
How does that, at the end of the year, there was a play, in the bowl game where Gus didn't put him in the game, and it was an obvious kicking situation because he missed like 3 out of his last 4. The kid was in his own head. Mm-hmm. You can't project kickers. You just got to let the Coles Kicking Academy, something like that, talk to you, but it's between the ears. I have no interest in scouting kickers.
Yeah, it's a difficult endeavor. I mean, leg strength is one thing, but you're right. The mental aspect is completely different than any other position, and not just football, but a lot of other sports. Yeah, I mean,
because you have one job. It's 3 seconds on the field. That's it.
Well, and we're talking about football. It's a big physical sport. And then you got Scott Starzyk, number 1 ranked kicker in the country by Coles Kicking. He's 5'9", 172. So you have the mental aspect. You're a little guy on this team of behemoths. There's so many oddities to the position as a whole. You had scholarship offers from Syracuse, Mississippi State, Memphis, a preferred walk-on opportunity from Texas A&M. So this is a Texas kid that had some opportunities, but made the decision, at least for now, that he's going to be an Iowa Hawkeye. With that, I want to jump over to some of the uncommitted guys. Start first probably with the one that continues to generate the most headlines, and that's Yose Epenesa. Dad played at Iowa. Older brother is at Iowa right now. Oldest brother played at Iowa and was All-American, and AJ Epenesa. The bloodlines are there. The family lines are there, but this is different than when AJ was going through the recruiting process 6-7 years ago. It's a different landscape, and Miami continues to be, for many people in the recruiting world, seems to be the front runner. Utah is right there with it as well, and Iowa's still hanging around, but feels like maybe they're third in this group at this point in time. Look at him first as a player, what you see when you look at Yose Epenesa, because I see an absolute stud, and he was the biggest of the bunch when he was a little guy.
He's reportedly in the 270-pound range. I don't remember what his older brother was, the kid that's playing with the Bills now, but it wasn't that big at this stage. 230, 240, if I remember right. But anyway, his get off, his hand use, and his ability to read the tackle as a strong side end is pretty advanced. Obviously, coming from the family he does, talking to his brother and his dad and stuff, it helps. But he also works his craft. I mean, you can tell that it's consistent. So you're not only getting a long, nimble body that's very powerful, but it's also technical. I think he could start at a lot of schools. Like Iowa, he might start at Iowa as a sophomore at the latest. Yeah. It's not like they don't have good D linemen, but he's going to be – he just has more skills than they do. It's just they don't have guys like him. But he could even play early at Miami, and Miami is not struggling for defensive linemen, I can assure you. So the only question with him is, does he end up inside or not? I don't know. He's technical enough that maybe he stays outside, but he's pushing that point where, like, you got to at least think that he's going to slide inside on passing down sometimes.
Well, and even projecting forward, I mean, you look at a guy that's already that size, he's more of your prototypical defensive end in a 3-4. And we know Iowa's not going to change to a 3-4. They're not going to do that even for a guy like as talented as that. They're going to be a 4-3 team, or 4-2 stack is a 4-2-5 stack is what they do now for the most part. But if you project him towards the NFL, does he look like a defensive end in a 3-4?
He looks like the guy that Saban or Kirby would love. And then the guys that, you know, some of the teams that run the true 2-gap scheme, because he just, I mean, it's pretty basic. You slant, you use your power, you try to get under their pads and just create havoc by holding 2 gaps. You know, that's the exciting play. The other one is you just hit the guy and look and then go for it. I mean, 2-gapping is not a good time. It takes a special mentality and a special frame. But on 3rd and 8, he's one of the rare guys as a true D end in a 3-4 that can rush the passer. That is unlimited. There's 5 of those guys on the planet. You know what I mean? At that level, those guys are usually terrible pass rushers because they're power. This kid is not. So I think he's a future NFL player. He's ranked that way. There's a reason. He's got the heritage. He's got about every edge there is. So I don't think it matters, though. He's so technical. He would figure out 4-3 or 3-4. So Iowa might use him in a different package. On 3rd and 8 or something, they might go 3-man line because they get another guy in coverage because you got to either double him or he's getting to your quarterback. So there's a lot of ways you can look at it because not many college guys are going to block him, especially by his sophomore year. He'll be a dominant player. Keeping the fingers crossed that that's going to go on a positive light. One more in the class of 2025. It's a guy we've talked about in the past, Terrence Smith, a wide receiver. I look at the guy, look at the production. Great. You look at some of the catches, and again, it's highlight reels, and that doesn't paint the whole picture. I always wonder, though, because I look at him and I see a prospect, Midwest kid, Chicagoland area. Look, everybody knows about him. Why haven't we heard more? Even not an offer, but maybe kind of a back burner from the Michigans and the Notre Dames and the Ohio State of the Wild. What would be the knock, I guess, against Terrence Smith? Is right now he's down to 2, Iowa and Minnesota. Speed. He's just not that fast. I bet on a gun he's 4.75, something like that. Electronic. His hands are ridiculous, though. he makes some really, really unique catches. He's just not a burner.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't teach the frame. You can teach a kid to get faster. Like there's ways you can improve somebody's quickness out of the break, etc. Iowa needs a kid like that. This is a recruitment they need to win. He may be a redshirt kid, whatever. You got to start somewhere. They need a kid like him in every class or better. The key words are every class. Iowa tries to do it once every 4. It's not a good idea. You know what I mean? Like they're recruiting at wide receiver leaves so much to be brought into question.
Yes.
And I know it's struck, but like you had to get there. Part of it's play calling, part of it's a former coordinator and all that, but it's still a Big Ten football program. Some of these kids could walk in and like start, and they're not even getting a sniff. So I don't know what they're doing, but they need a kid like this because he's got the big body that you have to have. And it also helps in the run game.
Oh, absolutely.
Not many corners don't want to go against that guy. He's going to be 6'4", 215. They're not going to want to take him on. So he would be a valuable asset to Iowa's football program.
Well, Brian, when we continue here, Locked On Hawkeyes, I want to get of the committed guys for the class of 2025, your favorite out of that group. And then we're going to take a peek ahead, class of 2026, 3 in-state prospects from the state of Iowa. We'll get Brian's opinions on all 3 of them, including a couple of guys that are big-time, perhaps national recruits with the offers that they already have. We'll do that as we continue. This is the Locked On Hawkeyes Podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes Podcast is brought to you by Gametime and the Gametime app. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball. It makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. Coming up this weekend, you got the Cubs at home back in Wrigley Field. Arizona Friday afternoon, followed up by the weekend series. The Twins play host to the Brewers. Doesn't matter what you're looking for. Your favorite team, wherever you are in the country, maybe you're vacationing, Gametime is the ticket experience that you want to use. I love the all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront. Don't have to worry about those surprise fees at checkout. And get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Trent Condon alongside Brian Smith back with you again here on Locked On Hawkeyes. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. All right, before we take a peek back to 2025 and your favorite guy, 3 guys that I had you take a look at for the class of 2026. All 3 of these guys are in-state prospects. I want to start with Evan Jacobson, the tight end. Now, I've known the Jacobson family for a very long time, so that probably distorts my view even a little bit more. So I'm not even going to put any thoughts or opinions out there. I'm going to leave this completely open to you. What do you look at? What do you see when you see Evan Jacobson?
Love the frame and the length. Makes catches that are contested and has the ability probably to fill out to 250 pretty easily. It's not a burner or anything like that, but he's a traditional Big Ten tight end that I expect him to use as an inline blocker. And as he gets more athletic and stronger, will be more impressive as a receiver. Right now, he's a big piece of clay. He's a kid that, this is famous for Iowa anyway, that kind of fits their old school mold at the tight end position. He's got a chance to be good. It's just going to take a couple years.
Don't see very often Ohio State, Penn State, Florida State, Auburn, Arkansas offering kids from the state of Iowa, LSU, Miami already out there. I mean, the offer list is already immense. His brother played college basketball at Nebraska and Iowa State, and then has been in the NFL with the Seahawks, and a guy that maybe with Evan, good basketball player in his own right, that might be, though, his future is not even worrying about that basketball side like his brother did and just concentrating on football. Dre Sha Ross is the next one from Fort Dodge. Ross is an elite level, national level recruit on the mat, one of the top wrestlers in the state. And for a big guy, he is absolutely outstanding. And seeing him his freshman year at the state wrestling tournament, that was an eye opener. But on the football field, he's already compiled a pretty good list himself looking this season. What position do you see? He's an incredible athlete. What do you see out of Dre Sha Ross?
Well, he's got 2 years of high school left, and like They use him in the Wildcat. Sometimes at running back, he plays linebacker. They try to keep him in the middle of the field so he can just run down guys. And he plays at Fort Dodge in Iowa. I mean, I'm guessing that 99% of the time he's the best guy on the field, and he runs over people. I could see him as a running back, possibly kind of an old school power back, but I'd imagine that he'll end up being an inside backer at Iowa or something like that. And he fits the mold. He's 200 pounds now, 2 years of high school left. He's going to be 6'3", 235 as a junior at Iowa, would be my guess, and be your starting middle linebacker.
Finally, the other from the class of 2026, Jaden McGregory. So Jaden began his career at Des Moines North. He transferred over to West Des Moines Valley last year for his sophomore year. It's part of the team that made a deep run in football, won another state championship in basketball. He's a really good basketball player, and at minimum would be a D2 kid there and probably even a mid-major type of basketball player. But
Right.
His best sport is football. Big, good size, 6'2". Wide receiver, some people like him at. Other people think he's a defensive back. Maybe the most interesting part, though, he's got offers from K-State and Iowa State and Tennessee, Minnesota, Missouri. The Hawkeyes haven't offered yet. That one's a weird one. What do you know about Jaden McGregory?
I actually sent a text to one of the guys in the recruiting industry about him. It's got him ranked pretty high nationally. The length is ridiculous. He looks like an LSU corner, like just on the hoof. And the way he breaks on the ball, it's similar to that too. So you think, well, obviously Iowa's defense would love to have him, but they need him on offense. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
They need him to play offense. I don't know what he wants to play. I don't know the young man, but holy cow, can he move? The only question I have is what's his demeanor? What's he looking for? If Iowa hasn't offered yet, I wonder if he's an NIL kid, like wants a bunch of money, or he's not coming and Iowa's just not interested. That's possible, but I'd imagine he's going to command a lot of money. This is a 4-star kid minimum, and he has the potential to play receiver. He has the potential to play safety and corner. Kids with that much physicality and athleticism and length, they can pretty much pick their spot. I don't care where he plays if he came to my program.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, he'll be the best player in a lot of games that he plays beyond high school. I'm guessing he's really good.
Get him on the bus, and then you figure it out later, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And that's a component. And one thing, I used to work in the West Des Moines School District, still live there and know a lot of people there. There's some growing up that probably needs to be done. And you know the Iowa program. Like, they're not going to take a chance certainly a guy this early, unless they really know and they've done their background work. And I think there's still some things that maybe they're looking for before an offer comes, but he's going to have opportunities. And Nebraska may be the forefront for him for the class of 2026. All right, wrapping up with you, Brian. And the class of 2025 isn't finished yet, but we talked about a lot of these guys. The newest commitment's the kicker coming in. But when you look at this group, Thomas Meyer, the tight end, he's a good one. I just want to get who your favorite guy is. And doesn't matter what direction, upside, greatest potential, whatever direction you want to take it. But out of this group for the class of 2025, who's your favorite commit?
Thomas Meyer is the best player in the class now, and the safest pick, the highest floor, the tight end out of Clear Lake, Iowa. But that's like a low-hanging fruit to pick. The two kids that I kind of went back and forth with, and you can go with it however you like. Mason Woods, he's a kid that's a big receiver. Maybe he's going to be a tight end or H-back. Athletic kid. He could probably play defense as well. The versatility, be from the family he's from. He's obviously familiar with the Iowa program. He's going to be successful. And then a kid I know we talked about a while back is not that they need help again really on defense, but they always develop these kind of guys. Charles Bell, the kid out of the prep school up in Connecticut, long kid, athletic. They'll add weight and whatnot. They always coach DBs well, and I like his feet. So I think those two guys are really, really good too.
All right, we're going to hold it to you in about 5-6 years. We'll see how right you are. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Hey, appreciate it. I know we had to do some adjustment here today. I really appreciate your flexibility, Brian. Always love talking football with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
Brian Smith joining us as he does every once in a while. We'll talk a little football recruiting. Always enjoy our conversations and a little bit deeper dive. We continue the football conversation. Get you ready for the weekend. A few news and notes and just an idea rattling around in my brain. We'll do that as we continue more Hawkeye football talk. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. So as we wrap things up and get ready for the weekend, maybe you're listening over the weekend, got some yard work to do. Yes, hand raise. I'm right there with you. Got some other things to do around the house, driving, whatever it is. Always happy to be in your ear. And first, if you're thinking about Kinnick Stadium, there's something special. And is it cheesy? Is it nerdy? Yes. Can I be cheesy and nerdy? Yes. Do my kids make fun of me? Yes. Does my wife? Absolutely. But as I saw the ticket sales, and we talked about this yesterday, go on sale for single game tickets. And don't get over to near the number of games that I once did. Kids' activities kind of throw a wrench into that. But every single time, and we'll be taking the kids to the first game of the season. Every single time I walk into Kinnick Stadium for that first time, every single year, I still get goosebumps. Even as a 44-year-old man, I still walk in and I still get that. And as you make your way through the tunnel, making our way to our seats that we've been now for decades, I still get that special feeling. I still get that moment where the chill hits you and it's walking in. It's a special place. And we are incredibly lucky to have a stadium like we do, to have a fan base like we do. And it's going to be even more special, I think, walking in this year, because I have some personal connections now to the program. And as I get older, my friends' kids get older, those connections, it's going to be really special. I'm looking forward to that, and just had that thought as we see there's only one game remaining where you can get tickets outside of the secondary market, and make sure you use Gametime when you're doing that for Hawkeye tickets. But the Washington game is the only one. And the prices continue to go up. The cost of doing business in college athletics, as we know, continues to go up. But it's still great. And getting together with friends, family, the tailgating, cheering on the Hawkeyes, post-game activities, whatever it may be, however you consume the product. Does it get more and more expensive? Absolutely. But is it worth it? I think it is. I think it is to have those kind of moments and to be able to get those chills. You don't get those chill moments a whole lot, at least for me, anymore in the world of sports. Still get into Kinnick. And looking forward to the opener against Illinois State. Hopefully the kids last a little bit longer than the home opener a year ago when it felt like it was 120 degrees. Hopefully we'll be a little bit better shape and we can make it through the whole game coming up this fall. It should be fun. Again, Washington, the only place where you can get single game tickets for the Washington game. And it's going to be another sold out year at Kinnick Stadium. Boy, what a place. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Next week, we got a lot of busy shows. We got to continue our previews. We have only made our way through one aspect of that. And the only aspect that we've got through at this point in time is the quarterback position. That was the easy one. We got to talk about offensive line. Some good stuff coming earlier this week, including Jennings Dunker slimming down. We'll talk about that. Of course, that deep running back position, and gets deeper with 2 incoming freshmen this year. Wide receiver, what do they do there? The tight end position, defensive line, linebacker, defensive backs, special teams. We still have a lot to preview before we get to Iowa Football Media Day. Next week will also be Big Ten Football Media Day. We'll make sure to get in a lot from there. We'll talk to a couple of people that are making their way over to Indianapolis. Also, next week, I'm going to be on the east side of the state for you Hawkeye fans over there. I will be in Cedar Rapids Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday calling the state baseball tournament. Looking forward to getting over and seeing the Colonel's Ballpark for the first time. No Dwayne Banks Field this year. It'll be in Cedar Rapids, but my first look at that one. And if you're over there, make sure to say hello, give a tip of the ball cap, and out and about. Should be a great time with the state baseball tournament, and plenty of future Hawkeyes will be involved in that as well. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Would appreciate that. 5-star reviews if you're on the other side, on the podcast side of things. We'll be back with you next week. Until then, go Hawks.